Hello, everyone. This is the exciting post-lunch session, and I can see from your faces that you are utterly excited and transfixed by this. So it's nice to see you all. My name's Tim Hinks, and I'm CEO of a company called Expectation, and we make things like Clarkson's Farm and Alma's Not Normal, so a mix of things, but it's not about me. However interesting I am, it's not actually about me today. It's about Camilla. I'm joined by Camilla Lewis, who is CEO of Curve Media, and we're going to talk through Camilla's career highlights, hopefully some lowlights too, because it's always more interesting, and look more broadly at sort of factual television, I think it's fair to say, Camilla, and talk about what that entails and some of the shows that Camilla's been responsible for. I should say at the very beginning, please put your hand up at any point, either just to ask permission to leave, you don't need to do that, go whenever you want, but to ask a question. So if anyone's got any questions as we go through, please do ask them and we'll come to you. I don't even know if it's a mic or it doesn't, anyway, we'll work it out, but ask at any point. So, Camilla Lewis is, it says here, an Emmy and BAFTA award-winning producer. Is that necessary to put that?
I didn't say that. I didn't write the brief.
But congratulations on the BAFTAs and Emmys. And has overseen some of the biggest factual shows in the UK and beyond, from Escape to the... You're also young, I don't know if you remember any of these, but Escape to the Country, Grand Designs, Four Rooms, Great British Railway Journeys. What was that about? And now, having worked at all sorts of big companies, back in 2014, I'm definitely going to ask you something in a minute. In 2014, formed her own company, Curve Media, having done lots of big jobs before that, and has made some shows you will definitely recognise and be familiar with. So we're going to look at some of those shows in a minute, show you some clips. But first, Camilla. What I thought might be maybe helpful just at the beginning is if this isn't too sort of big a thing to think about, can you give the people here a sort of sense of what you do all day, if I can put it that way? What you know, you're running your own company, and sort of what are the sort of things in every typical week you'll be sort of dealing with? Give us a flavour of that.
Well, Curve's designed in my shape, so it's the shape of it is from years of experience, like I'm sure Expectation is designed in your shape. You know, from years and years of experience, it now fits what I like doing most. So I like developing ideas, so I do a lot of development. And I enjoy managing people hopefully effectively well and having happy teams. So I talk to my execs about every programme we've got ongoing. We've got, at the moment, 7 returning series, so there's quite a lot of things going on with each of them that need support and backing. But my day-to-day isn't a day-to-day. Really, I pitch and I have relationships with commissioners and I develop ideas. It's probably the heartland of what I do. I spend a lot of time doing that, and then the last week I've spent 8 days making chess masters, which I know we're going to come to.
Yeah.
So I have actually gone back to being, which is what you never get higher than, an exec producer, and I'm sure you'd agree, there's no position higher in television than exec producing a show. And although people get poncy titles and get called big grand things and CEO. My mother loves the title CEO. It means fuck all. What I really do is just come up with programme ideas and make programmes. And if I don't make them myself, I get other people to make them and make sure that they're happy making them and they make them well. Obviously, I've been around for decades now, so I now know really good people to make programmes. So very rarely do I have to stand in and go, that's shit. I mean, that just doesn't happen in our company. I'm sure it doesn't happen in yours either.
Well, I wouldn't swear, for a start.
I'm sure you're a delightful man, as we all know. And so for me, it's about, I manage people, and I hope that I do that quite well, and I do it, you know, with respect to what they do. But I spend a lot of my time coming up with ideas and selling them. So
let's, because I know we're going to talk about specific ideas and takes, but it's really interesting that this, and I think you all know this because you're all clever and know exactly what goes on in the industry, but sometimes I feel it's worth just going back to first principles, which is, and it doesn't quite work like this, but it's sort of useful, is there's a group of people who buy programmes and put them on, and they're on platforms, whether it's the BBC or Netflix, and they, as I say, they buy the programmes and put them on. And then there's the actual fun job, which is, but the hard job, which is the producers who have to come up with these ideas and convince those people that they should spend money on them. And I wondered, Camilla, if you felt like, do you think there's such a thing as a sort of natural, are you a natural pitcher and seller. You obviously enjoy that because I don't think you've ever done the commissioning.
I have commissioned a bit.
Oh, you have? Okay.
I commissioned a bit of children's. I like coming up with ideas and making programs, and I like working collaboratively with good commissioners. That happens quite a lot. It doesn't happen all the time. And I'm lucky enough that I've been around enough that people know what I've done, that I can get commissions, and I do make programs I want to make. And I follow my heart on what I want to do. And my instincts will take me to places. I'm actually quite commercial, so I used to be, when I was at the BBC for a decade, I think I didn't think in commercial terms, but a few years of working for Fremantle, which is, what was then called Talk About Thames, that company taught me how to be a bit sharper, and that it wasn't a dirty word to be commercial and creative as well.
And because one of the things about the business is that certainly your side, which is to say producing, pitching, coming up with ideas, it's almost exclusively about being told no, right? I mean, it's a failure business, right?
Do you want to talk?
Yeah.
Oh no, I mean, I know that it's become really popularised, this thought, but really, I am all about failure, basically. I get told no all day, and then I get told yes, and then people think I get a lot. I'm really successful because I've got yeses. It's only because I get so many no's that I've got so many yeses. Honestly, it's non-stop failure, and managing that. I think going back to where I come from, my background, everyone's got their own story of where they come from, but I've failed quite a lot. So, I fucked up what we're called, sorry to apologise, I know it upsets your sensibilities.
I apologise.
I don't want to do that, Tim. I don't want to do that. But, my GCSEs, O-levels, I really screwed them up, and I got kicked out of school and told, you'll never get any higher than being whatever.
What did you get kicked out of school for?
For failing my exams.
Oh, I see. Wow.
Yeah. And told don't bother resitting them, don't bother doing A-levels, don't bother doing a degree. Well, I did all that. I didn't do brilliantly, and I was a bit mediocre as a student. But what I think always worked for me is because I had to go sideways around. Oh, I didn't even get a maths O-level.
Right, but this is what we're talking. This is the level we're talking at. It's quite scary, and yet, despite it all,
I'm really good at business. Yeah. But you don't. Honestly, I'd say you do not. Thank you.
Yes. Wow, it's an Oprah moment.
I am. I think
this is literally like being on Oprah. This is incredible.
No, I think Tim, I'm sure you can relate to this, dearest. But as a woman in the industry, you need to be able to sing your own trumpet and say what you can do. And and I know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. I get a bit bored with a lot of detail and things being very forensic, and I don't remember dates, and I haven't got a clue. And when I was setting up for producing this session and asked what I did when, I told you before, whole chunks of my career I'd got the wrong way around. Oh yeah, no, I did that then. Oh yeah, whatever. It's all a bit vague, and so when people say years and things, I can't do that. These are not my skills. But I can do some things.
Sorry, we're definitely see some criticism then, but I'm really interested in what you say, which is, if we think about, as you say, this fact that you're told no, as it were, constantly.
Constantly.
And what is it about you and what do you think you need, or maybe you're better off, what have you got that allows you, frankly, to keep going? And
resilience is obviously essential, but what you've got to have is a balance between not being arrogant and being able to hold up the fact that you're not always right and thinking, is this a good idea? But if you really believe in it and you've got the experience to back you, and experience really matters, and it's a big mistake to try and be the CEO of a company when you're 25 years old, because you just won't necessarily bring to it enough experience. In television, I'm not saying in every industry, but in television it is really good in content production to have a sense of kind of like what works, what doesn't work, what did I learn from that, how can I learn better, and taking your time to get to know those things. So I only became, I was 42 when I set up Curve, and that's quite old to set up a company, and I did it for lots of reasons personally why I wanted to have a company at that point, and I had a very clear reason why I did it and what I wanted a goal
Which
to
is
be.
what was
my intention was to sell it within 5 years and to make enough money to buy a house in Queen's Park, because I'd got divorced and lost my house. And I thought, I'm buying a house, I'm getting a house.
There's quite a lot to unpack there. Shall we go into that? I don't know whether this is strictly relevant for the audience.
I'll tell you all later.
But you had a very clear notion that you could build up...
I'm quite holistic, Tim. I think about the whole person and the whole story.
Definitely, but you could build up some value in a company, is what you felt. But you felt confident about that, or you felt terrified, or you felt right?
No, I don't feel fear like other people do, because I've had so much failure early on and having to go around the houses. And I didn't go to Oxbridge. I was at Oxford Poly, which is now Oxford Brookes. Everything I did was slightly lesser than everybody else in the industry at my level usually has done. And I, in their eyes, not in mine. But it was different, and I sort of didn't do great in things, and I failed stuff, and things went wrong. So I think it meant that I didn't really buy the idea that there was just one way to be successful, and there really isn't. There's lots of ways to be successful, but they all look exactly the same. They're about resilience, hard work, accepting failure the whole time.
Amazing. So what we might do, we'll come back to some of that in a bit, but I don't want to press you on the Queen's Park whole thing, but it sounds fascinating. Have you got the house in Queen's Park?
I got the house in Queen's Park.
There we go. Come on. This really is very Oprah, and I'm enjoying it, and I hope you are. This is, yeah.
You're just like Oprah.
We've clapped you. We've clapped you for buying a house. I mean, it doesn't get more game show than that. So, Camilla, what we might use some of the things you've said and focus in on a particular example, which is the Dementia Choir. And I think, so many of you will be familiar with the Dementia Choir. If you're not, you'll definitely recognise it when you see it. But we're not going to see a clip of the show. Oh, no, I tell you what, do you want to show your, shall we show your show reel?
Well, let me explain to you why we get, for
show
Dementia.
Reel?
My show reel for Curve or my...
Do you want to see that?
I don't think I've ever
seen it. Who wants to see the show? Am I right that there's a show reel?
I don't know if there is a Curve
I'm not
one.
right. Excellent.
We have got one, but I don't think it's here.
No.
You can see it.
I tell you what, we're not going to show the show reel on account of there not being one. So what?
Okay, let me explain to you. Maybe I should take over because I'm not sure Tim's quite up to speed.
I might just nip backstage for a bit. There's a
Tim,
teaser.
what there is
yes,
let me explain to you. So Dementia Choir, it's probably better I explain to you, is a perfect example of something where, how did this idea come about? Well, I'm neurotic and anxious, and so I worried a lot about dying of either cancer or dementia. These were the things that always worried me. And I think a lot of us have this at the back of our heads. Shit, that's a bit scary. And a way of dealing with things, because this is my therapy, is to make programmes about them when I'm worried about them. So I tried to persuade the BBC to do a show called Dementia Choir for about a year and a half and got absolutely nowhere. I kept trying to get them back with another reason because I'd read about music and dementia and how it could help. And then one of my brilliant APs in my development team said to me, oh, did you know that Vicky McClure is on the Alzheimer's Society? She's the trustee. And I said, oh, no. She goes, well, do you want to meet her? And I went, yeah, get her in the office. That's a really good idea. And she came in. And what I would like to show you, which Tim obviously knows all about because he's watched it in advance, is the first time she came into my office, I started a chat with her about how I felt about and why I wanted to do it. And I thought she was so extraordinary and so driven. And this is a terrible thing to admit to, but I'm really shit with talent because I don't really like fame and presenter-isy stuff. I grew up in television when one of my first jobs was at Big Breakfast in the Word, and I found the whole world of kind of like famous people slightly wanky. So I didn't like it. I wanted to be taken seriously. I wanted to be a serious person, so I went off and did current affairs. But I think because of that, I have this overhang where I sort of I don't find myself brilliant with talent. I say that I have worked with a lot of talent, but I don't. And so I was a bit cynical. But when she started talking about her relationship with her grandma and how she felt about it, I thought it was magic. So I said to her, do you mind if I film a bit of you? So I got my phone and filmed a little bit of her. And this is what I showed the BBC. And this is how to sell a programme, because it was genuine. She was having a real conversation. And I instinctively picked up on the fact that what she was saying came from her heart. What I felt about it came from my heart. And what we got on camera, we can have a look at that.
Great. Well, let's have a look at that. This is a conversation Camilla was having with Vicky, and here it is, I think.
This project to me is, one, it's an educational piece. Number two, it's a beautiful story because it's a happy story. We're giving people a chance to enjoy themselves and find that talent that they have. That, I do believe if people have, maybe it be an instrument or singing or whatever it may be, some sort of connection to music, I don't see where that can go. And I do think, I've heard the scientific evidence about music and the brain connecting, and it's very difficult to lose that connection. So it'd be fascinating to see what we'd find, and to collectively get all these people at the end to have this concert. I mean, I'd be bawling my eyes out. So
that is you. So that was just a informal chat at that point.
Yeah.
You decide. Are you thinking at that point, because it's obviously it's an amazing project, and some people may. I mean, I lost my mum to dementia, so those people that know about it know that it's an incredibly frustrating, cruel disease. But at the same time, you can't be all emotion, because are you thinking at the same time as it being something you really care about, that are you already thinking, how am I going to get this onto telly? And this is
I've been talking to the BBC for over a year before Vicky came in, and why I'd come to music as a way of doing it was because I think it's really hard to tell people difficult stories. And there's a whole theory in television, which I was taught by the brilliant David Glover, who's now at 72 films, but when he was commissioner at Channel 4, and he said, you don't want to make respect and avoid television. Now, you might want to, but I don't want to make respect and avoid television.
Meaning,
you get a great article in The Guardian, everyone goes, that was rather wonderful, that film about whatever, and no one fucking watches it. That to me is, what's the point? Why do that? I mean, for me, I'm broadcasting is the thing I'm interested in. How many people can I get to engage in difficult things? So the challenge with dementia was music was always the way in. And then when she related to it, it's like, oh, hang on, celebrity music, this is going to suddenly get a big audience, which of course it did, and went to the BBC and said, look, Vicky really, really does believe this. Her grandma died, she really believes it, look at the tape. And that changed everything. And then it was a slam dunk commission, because you're not going to not commission Vicky McClure, who at that point, Line of Duty was getting whatever it was getting, but amazing ratings, you know, to do something that was a passion project, not because she wants to be a presenter.
And at that point, are you then working out what... So I think everyone understands the notion of what a format is, and maybe you want to talk about that a bit. Just we talk about formatting an idea. So yeah, actually, why don't you come and tell what that means?
Well, that was more of a formatted doc, so it wasn't like a hard...
Right, but it's formatting.
Yeah,
so what does that...
you just work out a structure that makes sense. I mean, it's really easy. It's just storytelling, really. I mean, honestly, if you know how to tell a story at any level, we talked before about how you'd been in news for a long time, but if you can tell a story in any capacity, then you can tell a story on television in entertainment and factual entertainment capacity. So just breaking down the story and thinking how you tell this story well, that was not a strict format whereby week on week we returned and it was the same structural points you were hitting. But yeah, it all had the same narrative overriding arc of kind of like emotional buy-in and factual takeout. It was commissioned by Specialist Factual at the BBC, which is the sciencey kind of bit of the BBC, and so it needed deep content, and that's quite hard to marry with real emotions, but we had a really great cast of contributors which allowed us to tell different narratives. So, I mean, it's not really a formatting answer for you.
No, but I think there's something, because we're going to see a clip of the show. I know that much. There's a clip of the show in a second, but
well done.
Without getting, I feel good about that. Actually, I'm not going to lie. I feel good that I'm on top of it suddenly.
Yeah.
It's just on that formatting point, because I think I get what you mean, that it's not a format in the sense that a quiz show or a game show is, but it's really, I think it's always interesting that there's something about. And I wonder if you could talk about this a little bit, that, like ideas. Like, I always feel like everyone has ideas. It's sort of fine to have an idea, but and so there's Vicky sort of talking about something, and I'm really enjoying watching her. Would I watch her talk like that for an hour? Probably not. It might be a podcast, but TV requires a different sort of storytelling. So just at a sort of basic level, how do you think about that? Because when you say it's just about a structure, it is, but it's actually a really difficult thing to do, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's not something that's easy to kind of paraphrase down to one thing. But for me, it always starts with people and people's stories. I mean, without sounding too sort of like, I want to save the world, but you know, it's about humanity and how you can tell the story of humanity and the complexities and nuances of relationships. So one of the things we decided in format terms was we'd use a device that I'd seen, which probably many of you have seen, in When Harry Met Sally, when they've got couples on the couch and it's really sweet and the couples are talking romantically and lovingly about each other. So I decided that was a really interesting technique to use about dementia. So you'd have someone, and it was funny, and it was warm, and it was a bit sad, and it was a bit moving, and we used that as a little format throughout to engage and keep the audience engaged, that these were people we were talking about, however much science was piled into the programme and however much coordination there was of the narrative itself in terms of how it started, beginning, middle, end of forming a choir. Because what we did was, we just said, those of you who didn't watch it, and why would you have all, you know, we formed a choir. That choir is actually a charity. That charity is still ongoing, and that choir still exists.
As a result of the TV show.
As a result of the TV show. And it's quite an extraordinary thing and a thing of beauty. But we formed a choir and cast in people who obviously worked for television as well as for the choir. So anyone could be in the choir, but the people we showed on the programme obviously work for television. What working for television means is that in some way you're going to find empathy, some kind of way that you can relate to people, some aspect of their personality will ring true to you. So you could feel like, you know, you could relate to whatever it was they were talking about. And, you know, and I think in class terms, I think it's the programme I'm most proud of, because it really, it effortlessly took a wide range of people from diverse backgrounds and put them on primetime BBC One television and made us all feel like we are all one and we are all facing similar things, whatever their narratives were.
Amazing. So I don't know whether we need an intro into the clip, Camilla, do you remember that?
I can't remember which clip.
I've watched it, obviously.
So this is, I think, one of our contributors. I think it's the contributor, I'm looking at Helen for this, who's younger, and it was a very young case of someone who had dementia. Or are we just watching the end? Okay, okay, play
just
the clip.
Play the strong words from Helen off the scene there. Here it is. Here is the clip.
Weeks ago, I started a very special choir. They all have one thing in common. They're living with dementia. 850,000 people in the UK have dementia, and it can strike at any age. I'm Vicky McClure.
I watched my nonna being taken by dementia, and I watched her personality slowly fade away. And it's one of the hardest things to watch a family member go through.
So how old are you today?
14.
14!
14.
I also saw how music helped, changing her mood, calming her down, and for a while bringing us back the old nana.
Hello, I'm Mick. How are you? I'm Vicky. Nice to see you.
I want to see if music can make a difference to my choir's lives.
Why do you build me up? Whoa. Do that again for me. You got to do that again.
They've been taking part in a groundbreaking scientific study that will measure the effect singing has on their brains. We've been meeting regularly, practicing, and even performing for family and friends.
So darling, darling, stand.
Thank you for being part of our journey.
Using pioneering techniques and cutting-edge scanning technology, I now want to discover more about how music can stimulate a brain damaged by dementia.
What we're seeing here is responses to simple and complex music, and that show the power and the stimulation.
And we're preparing to put on the biggest performance of our lives.
Wow. Oh my word.
Because together, we're going to show that life doesn't end with a dementia diagnosis.
It's people like you that people like me need.
Though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before, I know I'll often stop and think about them. In my life, I love you more. In my life, I love you more. In my life, I love you more.
Hello, Captain Marvel.
Proud of each one of them.
No, it was lovely, it really was. You know, I've always gone to music and I feel better.
Really? Amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely beautiful. And actually, one of the things you think, you sort of said a minute ago, you sort of threw away this notion that you want to change the world. But actually, you know, television, that's an example of how powerful television can be, right? And what does that feel like from your...
Quite funny watching it back. I haven't watched it back for a bit, and I find it really moving when he said it's people like you, people like me need. And I felt so kind of like responsibility. I mean, I feel, without being too wanky, I feel really humbled to work in television. I feel really grateful for every opportunity I've had. I know that I've got skills that have got me to this point. I don't think it's just luck. I did used to think that. I now know because I can see why, what, who, where. And I'm sure you feel the same. You get to a certain age, you're like, oh, I get it now. That's why that happened. But I really feel it's deep responsibility when you're broadcasting to lots of people. Now, I was BBC trained. I think that even now, if you cut me through, you'll see Reithian values of entertainment and education. I think it matters. I think you can do you can change things. I have changed a few little things along the way. That's the uptake of music and dementia is immense in the country. The things with trauma and trauma medicine being recognised as a discipline, the people behind trauma medicine in the UK say, put it down to what we did with trauma, the programme on BBC One. I mean, I feel really proud of those things.
I think.
We don't have to, I don't think we've got a clip of it, but...
I've no idea if we've got a clip of it, don't ask me.
I don't know, I don't think so.
Camilla, can I ask you, because something like that, which is so moving and important, but do you also look back on it with a producer's eye and think, okay, anyway, here's the things we got right, and here, can you be, you know what I mean? Do you still think of it as a technical, almost
Oh yeah, no, and very rarely do I. It's actually quite nice to watch it back now, so many years later. I mean, we made 3 series of it, but the reason I feel better looking at it now is because there's been a bit of distance, and I feel less critical of myself. Whenever I do anything, and right now, as you know, I'm doing a very big project. You know, I always feel afterwards like I just don't feel the joy. When do you celebrate in television?
Yes,
because it's always failure, and it's always saying getting no. And even when you're successful, it's always getting no, and it's always having to readjust and blah blah blah. You know, there comes to a point you don't know when to feel good about it. So as to looking at the producer side, I'm hypercritical of everything I've ever done. When I'm doing it, I can see all the flaws, not all the good things. And I have to really pull myself back and go, hang on, this is good. Let it be good. Be nice to the team. Be positive, because it is working, you know.
It's definitely a good thing, but I completely understand your what you say about being almost suspicious of celebration in in telly. But you got your house in Queen's Park, so it's okay.
Who cares?
You get the last laugh. And important to note also that In My Life, that beautiful song you sang, credited to John Lennon, almost certainly written by Paul McCartney. But that's not a big issue, but you can tell from the melody, the octave.
So twice in my career, I've had to beg Paul McCartney to do things.
Okay.
Both times he said no, so if anyone knows him, feel free to say this to him.
He's here tonight, Camilla. He's coming.
We begged him to be on that programme, and he wouldn't be. And then we made a programme about Putin versus Greenpeace, which I'm extremely proud of, and he was very instrumental in kind of like the resolve in that story, and he also refused. Maybe it's me, I don't know.
A failure business, as you say.
Failing. Failing.
But he did write that beautiful song, we think. So let's move on, or actually move back, I'm going to say, just before we go on to the next sort of set of clips. You've referenced it, that you had a disastrous school life, and so, but can we just for people interested in, and obviously everyone's story is different, but is it possible for you to sort of give us a flavour of sort of how it happened for you in terms of how you got your break? Tell
I
us
never
about
wanted
that.
to work in telly. I wanted to be the first female Labour Prime Minister. That was my intention.
There is still time.
It would have been better if I was, probably. Thank you. It's not happening. It's not happening. That's what I wanted to do, and I basically, yet again, failed. I graduated and didn't know what I wanted to do. I'd planned to go on this scheme called JET. Some of you might know it was a Japanese, going and teaching English to Japanese people abroad. That's all I wanted to do. I got to the final stages, didn't get onto it, more failure. Phoned an ex-boyfriend, loved watching telly, watched telly all day. Didn't think of it as a career, because no one in my family was in telly. There was no nepotism, there was nothing going on there. And an ex-boyfriend said, oh, you could be a runner in Soho, some posh boy. And so I thought, oh, okay, I'll try that. And I think it's interesting that at that point, I now can look back and recognise that I had the kind of get up and go and the fearlessness to pick the phone up and phone someone immediately and not go, oh, I'm just going to hesitate and think it through and do the research, which perhaps in life I should do more often. But in that instance, I totally just thought, oh, I'm just going to phone up. And in that moment I phoned, someone had just left. And that was pretty much how my career, success-wise, went.
And it was like a production company? Or,
it was a post-production company, so they did editing. So it was on Wardour Street.
Yeah.
And so it was a fantastic thing to graduate and go and straight away be in a job in a post-production company, running around. I mean, I've loved every job I've done, mostly, well, one or two I haven't. Mostly I've loved every job I've done. But the reason why I was successful from that point thereon, it was exactly the same every time. I was the keenest, I was the hardest working, I didn't whinge, I enjoyed doing what I did, I found the beauty within the job I was in, whatever level I was at. I didn't constantly think the world owed me a living, because I didn't have that sense of entitlement that some people have. Because although I sound posh, you know, I'd come from, you know, my dad was a GP and my mum was a social worker, and you know, we'd had money, that's definitely true. But I'd failed so many times and messed up, and I had very successful siblings that I was a bit the dropout, the failure of the family.
Right.
I still am in my family, by the way.
And what did you, during those, let's say the first sort of 10 years, were you conscious of like, this is where I need to get to? Were you sort of planning?
No, I enjoyed it. I really loved it. I felt, honestly, I think the only thing I really did want to do early days was I wanted to work at the BBC,
right.
Which maybe now maybe feels relevant to lots of people, but to me at that point, and I know you'll remember this well, you know, the BBC was and is still internationally a behemoth of brilliance, and you know, and still, if you look at iPlayer, for me, it makes every streaming service look like rubbish because everything on it's excellent and it's really well curated and put together. And so I really wanted to work at the BBC, and I spent two and a half years in the independent sector, doing lots of different freelance jobs. But every job I got, when I look back, I can see why I got it. And it was because I worked harder. I worked harder, I was keener, I was enthusiastic. And when they said come with 3 ideas, I'd come with 20 ideas. And whatever was needed of me, I did more. And actually, I didn't realise at the time, because it was the days of Guardian jobs. You remember when jobs were advertised?
Media Guardian, yeah, the newspaper.
Guardian. Exactly.
Right.
And I got 3 in a row. And I remember thinking, this is really weird. Everyone says no one ever gets jobs in the Guardian. How come and at the time, I really didn't know why. But I look back and think, yeah, I know why they hired me. And now people walk into my office. So few people have actually done the work. They don't know what I make. If they get the opportunity to sit opposite me, they don't come in with ideas. They don't know what I make. They haven't got an opinion. And actually, that's all you need to do. And watch television.
Let's just unpack that bit you said there, because if someone comes into your office, which we encourage everyone to, maybe not all together, but individually to do, what do you need? What do you need from them? Let's just what's the top 3 or 4 things that you want from them? Yeah.
Being busy is not an excuse for not watching television, especially when everything is available in streaming terms. If you are passionate about the industry and content, then you should be watching all different sorts of content. And I don't really care what content you watch. I just want you to watch a range. So it doesn't really matter to me if you're obsessed by dramas or unscripted or whatever. I don't like it when people don't watch television. That's a bête noire. I don't like it when they don't know what shows we make. And I don't like it if they don't have ideas, because I think, why waste, you've got a few minutes, and if you impress me enough, there's something might happen, even if not directly with me, I'll recommend you to someone else, or I'll give you some advice.
I actually already feel the pressure. I'm not applying for a job.
Well, I'm not sure you'd get one, Tim, to be honest, but anyway.
I would definitely wouldn't give me a job. But I do know what the stuff you make. Hang on a minute.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
But it's so interesting that I think, because one of the things, just flipping back to when you're pitching and coming up with ideas, is almost one of the first things you need to know is to double check that someone isn't basically already making this.
Oh, yeah.
And that happens more than you'd think, doesn't it, with development?
Oh, it happens to me still. I mean, still I get that, really nothing worse than when you say, I've got this great new dating idea, we're going to do this, and they go, do you mean, they're not going to see each other before. You mean like Love is Blind? Oh, yeah, shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that hasn't happened, I'm not that stupid.
Yeah,
But things like that do happen quite a lot, and it's quite easy to not, because you've really got to know your game. And actually, going back to the pitching thing, I find the shows that I really want to make, I really believe in, and have come from something very deep within me. So medical stuff, my dad's was a doctor, my brother is a doctor, my sister-in-law's a doctor. There's a real reason in that. 4 Rooms, Great British Railway Journeys came out of old books. My brother-in-law's an antiquarian book dealer, and I'm very in that world. Dementia, I told you, was about my neurosis. Chess, which hopefully we're going to get to.
We'll do, yeah.
What I'm probably obsessively been about for the last 2 years, comes out of my daughter. I mean, everything's got, for me, it comes very personal, and they're the easiest ones to sell. Or I can recognise a good idea. So Greenpeace was not my idea. That was one of my development producers, who's brilliant, called Claire Beavis, and who told me the idea. I sold it, but it was her idea.
Mm. So, by the way, I noticed you were actually on a show, is it like just talking dating shows?
I've been on shows.
Is it true you were on Blind Date? I don't know if people know what Blind Date is.
They don't know what it is.
But it's basically...
You'll never find it, good luck with that.
It's the sort of one of the original, for our generation, like dating shows.
It used to get 19 million viewers.
Yeah, it's called something else in America. What's it called?
Oh,
anyway,
yeah, I can't remember.
Because Thingy's made a movie about the serial killer.
Yeah, in fact, I saw there was a serial killer.
What's that? What's the Netflix thing about the serial killer? Women of the Hour.
That's it.
It's that
I saw
show.
It the other day, yeah.
It's that yours wasn't serial killer based.
Yeah,
it was
hopefully not.
But you were on it. What happened?
You're asking the wrong question, Tim. Were you going to ask me if did I get picked?
Well,
Do you think I was not the picker?
I was being a bit more general there because I didn't want to lead
Interesting.
you.
Obviously, I went to the Isle of Wight. It was very exciting.
But you were picked.
I was picking. Obviously, I wasn't a picker.
Right.
That was a long time. That was well before I was in telly. I mean, that was because someone said to me I couldn't do it. I mean, it was a boyfriend at the time who said we used to be the most watched television programme of all time, made things like Baby Reindeer seem small viewing figures. It was huge, and everyone watched it on a Saturday night. And I was watching on a Saturday night, and he said, "You'll never get onto that." So I thought, well, fuck you. And 4 weeks later, we were filming it, and that's... Thank you.
I must say, he sounds like a charmer. But anyway,
Yeah.
what a lovely thing to say to you. Anyway, you did that amongst many things you've done, but let's bring it relatively up to date. 9/9. So we're going to go on to another series you made. You are, it says here, the medical genre, you're sort of was a big thing for you,
Yeah.
and still is. But 999 is one of the sort of
Well, it's the latest iteration that's kind of quite big.
And so, just remind us what dates are we talking here for 999?
Please don't ask me. What
Roughly.
did I say to you about dates?
Roughly.
I mean, we're at 250 episodes. Is that good
But
enough?
when did it start?
I don't know when it started. I mean, 8 years ago, 9 years ago.
Do you know what? I don't even need to know the answer now. I don't know why I asked it.
I know,
It was just,
a long time ago.
I just saw a little gap in the time, and I thought I'd fill it with a question where I could think about that.
Tim, don't do dates.
So you've certainly, it was in the past. We can agree.
No, it's on air now. It's very
exactly.
successful.
No, but it's extremely successful. It's had 800 million episodes.
I don't know how many. I probably lied about that a lot.
So when you said you know what a good idea it was. So what is it? What's the 999 secret? Do you think? What's that
I've
about?
been making medical shows for years, and how do you cut the same thing differently? And there's lots of great medical shows out there now. Not all of them are made by me, shockingly, but there are loads that are well made. But I think, how do you do it differently? How do you tell a story differently? And I think I was very interested in the idea of a narrative hour, and this is in documentary terms interesting. I thought, what happens when you just catch an hour, and actually, how can you catch an hour of time? Because I'm a huge proponent of the NHS, and passionately excited and believe in their staff and want to tell stories about people in the context of life-saving, and not just life-saving, but day-to-day medical treatments. But in this story, I was like, how can we do this differently? So the idea was to take 10 ambulance crews and film them, which is what we do, over a narrative hour, and then allow us to just seamlessly cut between them. So the format is really gentle, it's easy, it's just a classic format. It's just you've got a true hour, so you don't lie about the hour to the viewer. The viewer knows the hour is 3 till 4 or whatever hour it is, obviously different hours. But you tell the story of 10 different crews. Sometimes you only concentrate on 3 or 4 of them, but telling what happens in that narrative hour.
Sure. And we're going to see a clip of it now. So let's just have a look at that before we talk about it a bit more.
In Stoke,
We'll just get these off.
paramedic Linda and student paramedic Gemma are with Ruby, who has severe abdominal pain from pancreatitis.
What have you had? Anything or nothing?
Cocoa.
Ruby has already taken a strong painkiller, but it's had little effect.
How long ago was your last sort of flare-up?
3 months. Seems to be every 3 months.
Like clockwork, bless you.
Yeah.
When I arrive and see a patient screaming out in pain, it actually makes my heart sink a little bit, because ultimately you want to make them feel better, but I've got to do a job, and that means I've got to assess the patient before I can just jump in giving them any medication. And just lift her arm up 1 second. Oh, darling. There you go.
It's now. Oh, Jesus.
You just keep yourself focused on that breathing.
Oh, steady. You okay? Okay. Your anxiety. Relax.
Come on. Nice deep breath.
Through. Look at me, okay? In through your nose, out through your mouth. Keep looking at me. Look in my eyes, okay? Nice and steady. That's it. Nice and calm. You've got this. Yeah?
It seems that Ruby is having an acute panic attack.
Talk to us. Tell us something interesting.
Linda and Gemma need to calm her down before they can continue her treatment.
Let's try and take your mind off a little bit. Grandkids, tell us about them then. How many have you got?
9.
Crikey!
9.
See? Loads to talk about then.
Wonder
Tell
you've
us
got
about
no hobbies.
I know. They keep me busy.
Are they mostly boys or mostly girls?
Mostly boys.
Mostly boys.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
It's only 2 girls out. So.
Really?
Yeah.
How many kids have you got then?
4.
4?
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to help people through sort of panic attacks if we can distract them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you find that?
Yeah.
As well?
Absolutely.
I think talking rubbish usually helps us.
I'm really good at that as well. You deal with the pain side and I'll talk the rubbish, and I think we're quite a good team.
Works well, definitely.
Keep looking at me. Keep looking at me. Well done. In and back out again. Well done.
Now that Ruby's panic attack is subsiding, Linda can give her morphine to help reduce the pain.
That should be started to kick in, yeah? So we'll just give it a moment or two and let it sort of take effect, okay?
Acute pancreatitis is often linked to gallstones or alcohol, but sometimes the cause is unknown. Ruby doesn't know what's responsible for her condition, but treatment will involve a trip to hospital. And Ruby, who lives with chronic pancreatitis, was discharged from hospital after 4 days.
When I got to the hospital, they confirmed it was pancreatitis and they gave me all the medication that I needed then. I can manage my condition like by not drinking, taking my powders and watching what I eat. Go. The paramedics were brilliant that night. I mean, as soon as I got into the ambulance, they gave me some pain relief, which helped immediately. You know you're going to be okay, but it's like, oh God, I don't want to go through this again.
It's really amazing. It's really interesting watching accidentally, because I was really, people's faces, everyone's absolutely transfixed by it, and it's extraordinary the power of these stories and how obviously real they are. They are actually real. Can you just give us, before we go on to because there's interesting stuff about access and how you work with the sort of emergency services and so on, but in terms of people, it's real, they're in their homes, they're different degrees of vulnerable, but broadly they're all vulnerable to an extent because of what they're going through. How does it work in terms of frankly, permissions and how does that process work?
That's a really good question. I think directly on programmes like that is we obviously ask permission if they're conscious in any shape or form, or they have the health to. That goes via the health giver, so the nurse or the doctor who's in a location or paramedic. But we've been doing this. I've been making programmes like this for probably over 25 years. So you've got to bear in mind my experience and my ability to do those programmes ethically and correctly and to treat with the respect the patients and the staff who are involved in them means I get access easier than lots of people do. So it's very hard to rock up to a health service and get access unless you've got some kind of background in it. And they have trust and faith in the fact that you'll do it correctly. I mean, what I think works in those stories, and it's interesting because that story is no different from programmes I made 20 years ago. I mean, to be honest, I could show lots of different, I wouldn't have known which programme it was from if I didn't see the paramedics talking in their MIVs, their master interviews. I wouldn't have known which one it was. And that's not disparaging to me. That's just because there's an authenticity to it. Yeah. Don't undermine your audience. They like authentic. And in the world of rubbish, and we don't know what's true anymore or what to believe, which we hear on the internet, you can see that's true. That's someone truly going through a true thing that's truly happening to them. And within it, it doesn't take a genius to see. There's loads of factual take-home, but it's not told to you in a boring way. When I worked on Tomorrow's World, which I actually ended up killing for a bit, I mean, I remember we used to do a story, and there was one story particularly that stuck in my mind, and it informed how I make all medical programmes ever since, which was about the drug that you use to stop heart attacks, which is an amazing drug. I can't remember what it's called. Of course, it's detail. And you have to get given it within half an hour of having a heart attack, and then it stops the heart attacks dead. So you have to really be in a hospital or medical environment to get it. And when we did it on Tomorrow's World, we had a doctor in a lab talking about it, and we had someone telling us about how the experience had been, and we had a presenter doing a piece to camera. And then when I made Trauma, I saw someone have a heart attack, I saw them be given it, and I saw the result of that. And the impact in television terms was extraordinary because I saw the process in front of me. And I think what that messaging can do when you use it ethically and correctly, and you're not just doing it for splendour and shock, it can really translate to the audience with great information and take home. So, I mean, that's how, I think the reason we get the access and the reason why people say yes to us, and they do, is because they know that we go into it with a very... No,
I completely see that. And there is a very specialist thing, isn't there? Well, I don't know, how specialist do you think it is? Which is in certain areas of documentary like these, that we talk about access, which is basically to say you get embedded with the ambulance service or the police force or whatever, and that's a whole different thing, right? It's a whole specialist thing, right? You have people who know how to do that.
I mean, with Curve's not like most production companies. I know Expectation is similar to Curve like this, is that we're across a lot of genres, so we don't just do one kind of programme. But in this world of programming, we've been making, the people who make the programmes with me, the executive producer Claire Simpson, who's extraordinary and very much the queen of her world, has been making those shows for 25 years. So she knows how to do it properly, and then her team, she brings on lots of people, and we also make sure that our teams are well looked after, because it's a really traumatic show to make when you're making people are dying and things are happening to people, and you think you can cope with that stuff. That's quite hard stuff to deal with, and so there's a lot of care that needs to happen with the teams, the production teams, which goes alongside it. But we make shows like that, and then we make Hot Yachts, which is on against Below Deck on E4, which is a very different proposition.
It sounds very different, but we're not going to talk about that.
Good.
I'm going to share with you something very
They can watch
exciting,
it.
something happening live as we speak.
Okay.
You know, like a news and current affairs gallery,
Yes.
when you rip the script up because you're
Yes.
very... I'm looking at the clock. This is quite exciting. There's 16 minutes to go.
Fabulous.
We definitely want some questions. I'm going to jump. We
to
were
talk
going to do
about chess.
Greenpeace, but we're not going to do that, partly because Paul McCartney didn't want to do it, and that puts me off a bit, because I think he may have a point. And we're going to go to chess, because I know chess is your current exciting passion project. So let's talk about chess.
Oh, great.
What you've done or are doing is taking chess and you're making it into a television spectacular.
Yeah, they're not going to be surprised about this, because all of them know people who are on chess.com, and if they don't, they should know people on chess.com, or they're on chess.com themselves, because it's huge amongst
By the way,
young
I'm
people.
on chess.com.
Well, yeah, and young people and Tim, it seems.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely terrible at it.
But you know, chess.com, look, what happened was during the pandemic, I've got 4 children. 2 stepsons as well, so that's 6 in total. But of my 4, my third child had a dreadful time in the pandemic. She was 16. Some of you may have been similar ages. I don't know how old you all are. But she had, everything went wrong. I mean, everything went wrong. She got incredibly ill. She knows I'm telling this story, by the way. So I've told this story before. It's not the first time. But this is how I got the commission, is I told this story, which is that she was self-harming. She was, you know, on the edge of suicide. You know, cams were involved. It was bad. And that went on for about 2.5 years. It was the worst 2.5 years of my life. I mean, she was school refused, very clever girl, didn't leave her bedroom, crying in the corner pretty much all the time. Really, really difficult to handle, hugely depressed. And, you know, lots of therapy, psychiatry, bit of sertraline, bit shit, but various things sort of helped her. But what really got her out of it, and this is a beautiful story, is she got addicted, obsessive about chess.com and playing chess.
Amazing.
And she's not just good at chess. She's phenomenal at chess. Her rating, and those who know will understand, is 2256, which is just below Grandmaster. She is, she goes by a boy's name on chess.com because she didn't want to be hassled by boys. And so she...
I don't hassle anyone on chess.com, I just want to
Not you, just men generally.
Let's be clear. My rating's 163, so
okay,
I think
not
we're
quite the same.
probably
I think you're not playing each other, I don't think. But she started playing some boy in America who, for over 2 months, she online tutored him and played with him. And then he said, oh, I'd love to see you in person. Can we do a video? And so she had to admit that she was a girl. Anyway, she has been now with him for nearly 2 years. They're totally in love.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
She fell in love on chess.com. They spend it all, she's going next week again to see him. They go backwards and forwards. It's really cute.
Amazing.
And she's a phenomenal chess player. And she inspired in me, watching her and listening to her, and she's completely well now, thank goodness. And she's doing a degree and everything's fantastic. She from watching her journey and listening to her talk about Bobby Fischer's game in 1972 and all these unbelievable facts and social history and history, it suddenly dawned on me in the way that, you know, it can take you a long time to realise something. Hang on a minute. So chess, right, so that is something that's cross-caste, cross-culture, cross-age, cross everything. And actually, where's the television programme? Queen's Gambit was huge. Where's the television programme that's factual entertainment? And the old show that used to be on, which when we were growing up, very boring on BBC Two.
What was it called?
It was called The Master Game. Yeah. Very boring white old men playing chess, was a bit dull. Sorry. You could have been on it, Tim.
I'll be honest, I definitely identify as boring. I don't know about old white man, but yeah.
Apologise about that. But anyway, so I thought, God, there's got to be another way to tell this tale. So I became passionate, and it was about 2 years ago, about chess. And the great thing, if I get passionate about something, I'm very privileged and lucky that I now get access to big, important people. So a year ago at Edinburgh Festival, at the McTaggart Drinks, which is a very Ponzi thing, which Tim's been to, and is a big Ponzi event, I was there, and the big head of the whole of the BBC, called Charlotte Moore, who's in charge of all content at the BBC, was there, and I said, I am going to make a programme about chess, and it's going to be a factual entertainment programme, and it's going to be entertaining, it's going to be engaging, it's going to be emotional, and it's going to be brilliant. It's going to be about psychology and strategy and tactics. It's about how chess cuts through everything. It's on all the dramas, but yet there's no factual entertainment. And she went, yeah, you've got me. She said, go and persuade the commissioners. And I did. And here we are.
By the way, it's a small detail. Nobody pitches at the McTaggart dinner, but Camilla does. Respect to you.
Thank you.
Because everyone's too polite to do it, so...
I'm not so polite.
Fantastic.
But we've got... I can't show you... So last week we were shooting it.
Right.
We shot for 7 days solidly. So I, who like...
Oh, there is no VT of this?
Yeah, there's a VT that we need to see, and I'll explain to you why, because it's good for you to see it in terms of selling. So I had to go and persuade all the commissioners. So I'd kind of persuaded the top, but there's a lot of politics in television, Tim will tell you this. And then I had to go through persuading everybody else around that person, from iPlayer to, you know, all the different different commissioning teams. And to do that was a process, but they were always very positive, which is great. But, you can't persuade people just on words alone. Even me and my great bullshit. You have to actually show people a bit of tape. So the tape we're about to see is the sizzle tape. It is not what the show looks like. We shot the show last week. It will be on air at some point in the early next year. We shot solidly we did 8 shows over a 4.5 day shooting and a week on location, intensive time. So I'm only just recovering now because I don't think I've ever worked so hard in my life. But this is my passion project. I know it works as a show. Whether it rates, I don't know.
Sure.
But have a look at the sizzle.
Fantastic.
Queen's Gambit changed chess forever.
New popularity.
Now wildly popular.
Chess, drugs, and rock and roll.
We thought that was going to be the peak of chess, and it turns out it wasn't.
It is a great game. It's my favourite game also.
My dad's move in chess is to knock the table over.
Damn it! I shouldn't have taken that. I got too trigger happy.
Checkmate.
Checkmate. Checkmate.
Dang.
It's going to be fast. It's going to be furious.
Checkmate! She did it!
Both sides are now going to start advancing their pawns.
Oh my goodness, what a great move.
I have no words. I have no words.
Wow, couldn't take the pawn because king g6 checkmate.
This time moving the bishop to defend the knight on d3. What?
No!
Let's do it!
Get in there, son.
Checkmate, look at him! Yes! 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 Yes!
An avid chess fan, Woody Carroll's in the studio.
Lico.
I've been playing chess since I was very young.
I'm very proud to say that I love chess.
My granddad taught me to play chess before he died. My best memories of playing with him.
When games are very complicated from the start, you're trying to not let your mind wander at all.
It's going to be so good.
Take the queen!
Test of nerves, test of homework.
I'm so proud of Michelle!
That was emphatic. That was amazing.
She played so well.
Wow. Brilliant. It's the whole thing, the way you told the story is fascinating, the content. But before we come on just to what it's about, I think it might be just worth saying and pondering on the fact, because you mentioned this was a sizzle tape and people may or may not be aware of that whole world. What you've got there is a tape, a bit like a movie trailer, really, but none of it is the actual show.
None of
this
it's
is the point.
show.
So none of it's the show, and this sizzle tapes get made far more now. It used to be an American thing, and now it's just everybody does it, I think. And what you've got to do is got to capture what it is, but not having shot anything.
And it's quite funny watching it now, having just shot it over the last week, looking at it now, because actually, apart from the celebrity element, which we just ended up not going down that path for good reason, it's essentially the same. It's much more stylish than that. It looks like the Queen's Gambit, to be honest with you. It's very glitzy looking. But when I look at that now, I think, actually, all those things we said we were going to do, we sort of did do. I have to say, I'm always like this. It's always the new, bright, shiny thing that I'm excited about. I really think what I love about this is it's very entertaining, very watchable, very kind of engaging and relatable. But because the people who play chess are obsessive chess players. They're not on it to be famous. They don't want to be famous. They don't want to be the new Love Island people. They're doing it because they want to, and they want to win. But they're beautifully collegiate. They get on really well with each other until they play across the board. Right. And then the psychology that plays in is so clear to see. And those of you who know this will know, and those that don't won't be surprised to hear, that like with things like, what's it called? What's the game?
Minecraft?
Minecraft, thank you. Minecraft, and all those weird things where there's commentators talking about how to play it, and that's bigger than actually the player of it often. In chess, commentators online are huge, and our commentators we've got are phenomenal. And I'm extremely proud of who wins it. I think we will redefine things.
It sounds exciting. I want to ask you one question about it, because as you know, I'm sort of quite a big noise on chess.com. is, how do you shoot it? Do you shoot it like, because I remember that old one was like shot from underneath the tape. Anyway, but how do you you must have thought about that. How do you actually shoot the thing, right?
Well, it's very clever. I'm not allowed to tell a lot.
Oh, fine.
We've had to sign a huge amount of NDA.
No, don't worry.
I mean, it's a question as to how
it has a certain look.
It has a very, very, very beautiful look, which is very different from what you've just seen there.
Yeah, no, fascinating. We've got 6 minutes 37, 36. I'm not going to count down. But one of the reasons I think, unless I've missed you, so sorry if I've missed any hands going up, that we haven't seen questions is because I think Camilla's been absolutely riveting and passionate and exciting to listen to. So I've really enjoyed it, and I think you have, unless you tell me you haven't. No, no one's saying that. So
someone put their hand up when you said
but
you
I think
haven't.
we should encourage questions. So yes, I think you can probably just shout out. I mean, I'm not, oh no, there's a mic coming.
Don't break the rules.
Just to slow things up, there's a mic coming.
Hello. You mentioned that you are a very hardworking person, and it seems like you work 24/7, and that this is the key to success. How do you manage to balance, and do you rest at all? What's your working day like?
That's a really good question. I think I'm hardworking, but weirdly because of online and partly because of the pandemic and Zoom and things like that, I've got 4 extremely demanding children who want a lot of my time. And I don't like working 24/7. I actually don't think it's about hours you work. I think it's about working smart, not working long. And actually, I learned that very early in my career when I watched people staying really late to say, I worked till midnight. Really, what did you do? So I don't think you need to work ridiculous hours. You just need to work smart. I actually have quite a nice life. I've got lots of friends, I've got a lovely family, I'm driven mad by my children. I spend a lot of time making soup in my kitchen while having an opinion about something. But I think I need to know when I'm needed and when I'm not needed. And I'm also very good at delegating. So what I don't do is what I don't need to do. So if I don't need to do it and I've got someone else who can do it, I won't do it. If it involves something that I need to do, then I'll do it. But that's a privilege that comes after years of working in the industry. I think it is really hard working when you first get into the industry in hours terms, and I think that does maintain for a bit, but over time that should reduce, and you should be able to take control of what you can do and what you can't do. And you just have to be able to know yourself well enough.
But it's also, we'll come to another question, but it's also true, isn't it, that television, it's very hard to sort of switch off, right? Because you're always thinking, so how...
I don't mind that I don't switch off that much because I love television. As I said, I go back to the humble thing. I might appear to you to be incredibly arrogant, but I think I'm not. I think I'm actually very humble. I'm very confident, but I'm extremely grateful and humble to be in an industry that still allows me to do it. I love watching television. I love watching all different sorts of television, and I find it really interesting. And the conversations I have at a dinner party might make me think something, or I might walk down the street and think something, or read an article in the paper. But all of that is something that I enjoy doing, so therefore it doesn't feel arduous. The arduous bits, last week was arduous. I've never worked so hard, so that nearly killed me, and it's amazing.
Why was it so hard?
Because it's 16 hours days, and I'm an old lady.
Right.
16-hour days non-stop of intensity trying to make something wonderful out of nothing. It was quite tough, with lots of rules and regulations and things you have to stick to.
Let's have another, oh gosh, we're spot. So yeah, down the front here, and then we'll come to you, and then we'll just basically see how much we can fit in.
Oh my gosh, I feel so much pressure because you are such a wonderful woman, Camilla. Honestly, I'm absolutely in awe, but I just need to so I'm going to try and organize my thoughts. I just thought I would ask, there's been 2 words that have been lingering in my head for a few weeks and months, and it's motivation and discipline. And I've always thought, how do I lead either one? Do you feel like motivation, discipline, what do you think of them? What do you think we should possibly lead with, and how can we almost instill within ourselves to fill our own cup, and then we can deliver the results that we want to, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think you need an entrepreneurial thought behind that, which is that when I say entrepreneurial, it sounds terribly right-wing, and I really don't mean that. I mean, you're in charge of your own destiny. So the motivation thing is that if you don't do it, it's not going to happen. If you're waiting for someone to notice how great you are, it's not going to happen. You sort of have to tell people you're great. You don't have to verbally necessarily tell them you're great, but you have to put out there in some shape or form. And I think the motivation and the discipline is about being respectful to whatever you're doing. So never be disrespectful for whatever job you're doing, whatever level you're at and wherever you're working, however annoying it is, you've got to work with passion and with pride at that job.
Thank you. There's a question that, if you're still up for... Yes.
This is kind of a weird question. It's actually not related to television at all.
Okay.
Just from observing you, you seem like a really incredible businesswoman, and you know what you're doing, you're confident in yourself, which is... I feel like society makes it quite hard for women to do that. So I was just going to ask you, general business advice do you have for like someone like just starting out and someone who wants to run their own business someday?
I think the most important thing I can say to any of you is out there are wonderful people, and I am a product of having learned from them, basically. I have spent my career looking above me and alongside me, and, well, I hate to say below, but around me, at people who inspire me, in different fields, maybe. And what I've done in a way that other people haven't done is been humble enough to go to them and say, I'd like you to be... So someone who Tim works alongside, Peter Fincham, absolutely years ago, I went to him and said, I want you to be my mentor. I want you to advise me, because I found him really, at that point, really inspirational, and I wanted to learn from him. And people like being complimented. So if you go to them and say, I want to learn from you, they'll listen to you. I think the mistake we all make is, going back to what I said to you a minute ago, is we wait for something to happen through us, and women really can't. And I'm afraid it's still a very sexist industry. I mean, we'd like to pretend it isn't. There are brilliant women out there doing brilliant things, and there are many more women at the top than there used to be. And that's phenomenal and wonderful. But we live in a patriarchal society, and it's tough. So you've got to find those people you find inspirational. You've got to ask them politely and correctly for a small amount of their time to give you advice. They don't have to mentor you permanently, but maybe they can give you a little bit of advice. And it doesn't have to be in telly, as you said. It can be in lots of different fields. How do they get to do that? What is that? How does that work? And there's not one answer, but you'll get a picture yourself, which you can put together from lots of different people.
Thank you, Camilla. I'm afraid I'm going to have to stop it there because Helen is like really waving at me and doing that sign, which seems a bit excessive, but I get it. So what I wanted to do, but Camilla's probably, I don't know if you're around for 5 minutes after, but come and grab Camilla. Lead from her, take from her example and go grab her and ask her things. But not all at once. I think there's only one thing to do, which is to give huge thanks to the incredibly inspirational Camilla Lewis. Well done, Camilla.